Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev ki jai. Nitila Pravishram Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Nitila Pravishram Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitila Pravishram Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Nitila Pravishram Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Nitila Pravishra Mahabhagavat Srila Goksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nitila Pravishra Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Nitila Pravishra Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupa Nugariya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadasha Gunashara Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari. Okay, the power went out, but I switched over to a Wi-Fi connection. I mean, a mobile hotspot. So hopefully it will work. So where was Jai? Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Rupa Nugariya Guru Varga ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Gopal Patadasha Gunashara Goswami Prabhu ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gopal Shad Vrinda ki Jai. Nama Jai Shri Ras Thakur ki Jai. Prem se Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaur Mandal Vaja Mandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Shri Radharaman Avirbhav Titi ki Jai. Stefan Divas, I don't know what you say. Shri Srinivasacharya ki Jai. Titiya Shubha Avirbhav Titi ki Jai. Shri Madhavendra Puripad ki Jai. Titiya Shubha Avirbhav Titi ki Jai. Shri Parameshwari Thakur ki Jai. Titiya Shubha Tirubhav Titi ki Jai. Shri Buddha Purnima Titi ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Shinitaya Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Wo. Yeah, the power went out. That's why I'm using my mobile hotspot right now. Oh, really? Okay, Noka Vihar ki jai. The power just came back. Wonder if it's just going to go out again. Anyways, let's start. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Narayaniti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo mahavadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna chaitanya namne gauratishe namaha. Guruve gaurachandraya radhikaya tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna bhaktaya tarbhaktaya namo namaha. Yam damanupetam apet dvaipayano vijuha putreti tanmayataya vinedu stamsatos namastya narang chaiva narottamam devim vyasam tato jayam udirayet shrinvatang swakata krishna punya shravana kirtana hridantasto yabhadrani vidhunoti suritsatam nashta prayeshvabhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatuttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki tavaivasmi na jivami tvaya vina iti vigyaya radhe tvam nayamam charanantikam bhaktya vihina aparadha lakshay kshiptashtakamaditarangamadhe kripamai tvam sharanam prapanna vrinde namaste charanaravindam. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. What did we read yesterday? We read 27 to 39. Okay. Okay, so we heard about Archie's voluntary austerities and service to her husband, her lamentation when her husband leaves, and her entrance into her husband's funeral pyre. And then the demigods praised Archie. They sounded instruments, showered flowers, and they said, Archie served her husband perfectly, surpassing the devatas. Let's just read from here. Earthly humans have only a short lifespan, but by engaging in devotional service, they go back to Godhead, Bhagavat Padam. What is unattainable for them? Certainly he is envious of himself and is cheated, who, even after attaining with great difficulty the rare human form of life capable of giving liberation, and he just wastes it for sense gratification. That person is envious of himself and is cheated. Attained the same planet as Pṛthu. While the demigods were thus talking, Archie reached the same planet as that husband. Pṛthu's story is wonderful. He is powerful and has great character. Thus I, Maitreya, have described him as far as possible. One who faithfully and attentively reads or hears this pastime attains the abode of Pṛthu. A Brahmin becomes the most learned. A Kshatriya becomes the leader of this world. A Vaishya becomes the master of other Vaishyas and cows. A Shudra becomes the best devotee. Wow, I want to be the Shudra. A childless person becomes blessed with good children. A poor man becomes the richest. A person with no reputation becomes famous. A fool becomes learned. One gains all auspiciousness, and there is no auspiciousness. One achieves wealth, fame, a long life, swarga, immunity from Kali Yuga's influence, the results of all four purusharthas, a king's victory, ruling power, and tribute from subordinate kings. So, a pure devotee, while discharging devotions, must hear, read, and induce others to hear of the character and life of Pṛthu Maharaj. Hearing and chanting about Pṛthu Maharaj enrich one's devotional attitude, faith, and attraction to the Lord's lotus feet, which are the boat for crossing the ocean nations. Thus one can go back home, back to Godhead, like Maharaj Pṛthu. Okay, so today we're reading about the genealogical line of Pṛthu, and the Pracetās meet Lord Śiva. We're going to get just before they meet Śiva, I think. Alright, let me open up this. Dandavat Pranams, Rup Manjari, Gagraji, Raseshwari Mataji, Prajumna Prabhu, and whoever else is there. Did I say Indira Mataji? Dandavat Pranams to all of you. Okay, 24. And yeah, this connection might cut out. If it gets too bad, then we'll just have to continue tomorrow. Because my phone internet isn't always very stable. Maitre Uvacha Vijatashvo Dirajasit Pṛthuputra Pṛthushrava Yaviyobhyo Dadakashta Bhratribhyo Bhratrivatsala. The great sage Maitreya continued. Vijitashva, the eldest son of Maharaj Pṛthu, who had a reputation like his father's, became emperor and gave his younger brothers different directions of the world to govern, for he was very affectionate toward his brothers. Report by Srila Prabhupada. After describing the life and character of Maharaj Pṛthu in the previous chapter, the great sage Maitreya began to speak about the sons and grandsons in the genealogical line of the Pṛthu dynasty. After the death of Maharaj Pṛthu, his eldest son Vijitashva became emperor of the world. King Vijitashva was very affectionate toward his younger brothers, and therefore he went to rule different directions of the world. From time immemorial, the eldest son generally becomes king after the death of the previous king. When the Pandavas ruled the earth, Maharaj Yudhishthir, the eldest son of King Pandu, became emperor, and his younger brothers assisted him. Similarly, King Vijitashva's younger brothers were appointed to govern the different directions of the world. Haryakshaya dishat prachim, Dhumrakeshaya dakshinam, Pratichim vrekasangyaya, Turyam dravi nise vibhu. Maharaj Vijitashva offered the eastern part of the world to his brother Haryaksha, the southern part to Dhumrakesha, the western part to Vrika, and the northern part to Dravina. Antardhana gatim shakral labdvantardhana sangita apatyatrayam adhatta shikandinyam susummatam. Formerly, Maharaj Vijitashva was the king of heaven, Indra, and from him received the title Antardhan. His wife's name was Shikandi, and by her he begot 3 good sons. Purport. Maharaj Vijitashva was known as Antardhan, which means disappearance. He received this title from Indra, and it refers to the time when Indra stole Maharaj Pṛthu's horse from the sacrificial arena. Indra was not visible to others while he was stealing the horse, but Maharaj's son, Vijitashva, could see him. Yet despite his knowing that Indra was taking away his father's horse, Vijitashva did not attack him. This indicates that Maharaj Vijitashva respected the right persons. Although Indra was stealing the horse from his father, Vijitashva knew perfectly well that Indra was not an ordinary thief. Since Indra was a great and powerful demigod and servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vijitashva purposely excused him due to sentiment only, even though Indra was acting wrongly. Thus Indra became pleased with Vijitashva at that time. The demigods have the great mystic power of being able to appear and disappear according to their will. And since Indra was very pleased with Vijitashva, he bestowed this mystic power upon him. Thus Vijitashva became known as Antardhan. Pavamanascha shuchiritagnaya pura vashishta shaparutpanna punaryoga katim gata. I'm just checking every now and then to make sure it's still running. The three sons of Maharaj Antardhan were named Pavaka, Pavamana, and Shuchi. Formerly, these three personalities were the demigods of fire, but due to the curse of the great sage Vashishta, they became the sons of Maharaj Antardhan. As such, they were as powerful as the fire gods, and they attained the destination of mystic yoga power, being again situated as the demigods of fire. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita 6:41-43, it is stated that one who falls down from yoga practice is elevated to the heavenly planets, and after enjoying the material facilities there, he again goes down to the earthly planets and takes birth in a very rich family or very pious Brahmin family. Thus it is to be understood that when demigods fall down, they come to earth as sons of very rich and pious families. In such families, the living entity gets an opportunity to execute Krishna consciousness and thereby gain promotion to his desired goal. The sons of Maharaj Antardhan had been the demigods in charge of fire, and they regained their former position by mystic power, returns to the heavenly planets. Antardhana nabhasva satyam avirdhanam avinda ya indram ashvahartaram vidvam api najagnivan. Did I forget to say the name of this chapter when I started? This is chapter 24, and what is the name? It is, I think, Pracetās meet Shiva. Is that what it's called? Where is it? Oh, chanting the song sung by Lord Śiva. That's the name of this chapter. Sorry, guys. I already read the Sanskrit. Yeah, I did. Maharaj Antardhan had another wife named Nabhaswati, and by her he was happy to beget another son named Havirdhana. Since Maharaj Antardhan was very liberal, he did not kill Indra while the demigod was stealing his father's horse at the sacrifice. Purport. It is understood from various scriptures that the Puranas, that the king of heaven, Indra, was very expert in stealing and kidnapping. He could steal anyone without being visible to the proprietor, and he could kidnap anyone's wife without being detected. Once he raped the wife of Gautam Muni by using his disappearing art, and similarly, by becoming invisible, he stole the horse of Maharaj Pṛthu. Whenever we hear about Indra, he's always doing something really terrible. Anyways, we're not supposed to criticize demigods. But although in human society such activities are considered abominable, the demigod Indra was not considered to be degraded by them. Why not? Although Antardhan could understand that King Indra was stealing the horse from his father, he did not kill Indra, for he knew that if one who is very powerful sometimes commits an abominable act, it should be disregarded. Why? Sorry. I need to... In Bhagavad Gita 9:30, it is clearly stated, Api chet sudaracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak sadureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hisa. Thus the Lord said, okay, this is Srila Prabhupada's answering. Thus the Lord says that even if a devotee does an abominable act, he should be considered sadhu, or a pious man, because of his unflinching devotion to the Lord. The devotees of the Lord never willingly commit any sinful act, but sometimes they commit something abominable due to their previous habits. Such acts should not be taken very seriously, however, because the devotees of the Lord are very powerful, whether they are on the heavenly planets or on this planet. If by chance they commit something abominable, it should not be taken into account, but should be overlooked. Ragyam vritim karadhana danda shukla didarunam manyamano dirga satra vyajena visasarjaha. Whenever Antardhan, the supreme royal power, had to exact taxes, punish his citizens, or fine them severely, he was not willing to do so. Consequently, he retired from the execution of such duties and engaged himself in the performance of different sacrifices. Purport. It is clear herein that sometimes has to perform duties which are not very desirable, just because he is the king. Similarly, Arjuna was not at all willing to fight, because fighting or killing one's own kinsmen and family members is not at all desirable. Nonetheless, the Kshatriyas had to perform such undesirable actions as a matter of duty. Maharaj Antardhan was not very happy while exacting taxes or punishing the citizens for their criminal activities. Therefore, on the plea of performing sacrifices, he retired from the royal majestic power at a very early age. Internet still going? Okay, yes. Tatrapi hangsam purusham paramatmanam yajangstal lokatam apa kushalena samadhina. Although Maharaj Antardhan was engaged in performing sacrifices, because he was a self-realized soul, he very intelligently rendered devotional service to the Lord, who eradicates all the fears of his devotees. By thus worshipping the Supreme Lord, Maharaj Antardhan, wrapped in ecstasy, attained his planet very easily. Purport. Since sacrifices are generally performed by fruitive actors, it is especially mentioned here, Tatrapi, that although Maharaj Antardhan was externally engaged in sacrifices, his real business was rendering devotional service by hearing and chanting. In other words, he was performing the usual sacrifices by method of Sankirtan Yajna, as recommended. Smaranam Pada Sevanam Archanam Vandasyam Sakyam Atmanivedanam. Devotional service is called Kirtan Yajna, and by practicing Sankirtan Yajna, one is very easily elevated to the planet where the Supreme Lord resides. Out of the 5 kinds of liberations, achieving the same planet where the Lord resides and living with the Lord there is called Salokya liberation. Salokya and Samika also, right? Being with the Lord. Avirdhana dhavirdhani Vidura sutta shat sutan Barishadan gayam shuklam Krishnam satyam jita vratam. Havirdhana, the son of Maharaj Antardhan, had a wife named Dhani, who gave birth to 6 sons named Barhishat, Gaya, Shukla, Krishna, Satya, and Jitavrata. Barhishatsu Mahabhago Havirdhani Prajapati Kriyakanteshu Nishnato yogeshu cha kuru dvaha. The great sage Maitreya continued, "My dear Vidura, Havirdhana's very powerful son named Barhishat was very expert in performing various fruitive activities, and he was also expert in the practice of mystic yoga. By his great qualifications, he became known as Prajapati." Purport. Beginning of the creation, there were not many living entities, and consequently, the very powerful living entities or demigods were appointed as Prajapatis, progenitors, in order to beget children and increase the nation. There are many Prajapatis, Brahma, Daksha, and Manu. Brahma, Daksha, and Manu are sometimes known as Prajapatis, and Barhishat, the son of Havirdhana, became one of them. Yasedam devaya janam anuyagyam vitanvata prachinagrai kushar asid astritam vasudhatalam. Maharaj Barhishat executed many sacrifices all over the world. He scattered pusha grasses and kept the tops of the grasses pointed eastward. Purport. As stated in the previous verse, Kriya Kandeshu Nishnata, Maharaj Barhishat dived very deeply into the fruitive activities of sacrifice. As soon as he finished one yajna in one place, he began performing another yajna in the immediate vicinity. At the present moment, there is a similar need to perform Sankirtan yajna all over the world. The consciousness movement has started performing Sankirtan yajna in different, and it has been experienced that wherever Sankirtan yajna is performed, many thousands of people gather and take part. Imperceptible auspiciousness achieved in this connection should be continued all over the world. The member consciousness movement should perform Sankirtan yajnas one after another, so much that all the people of the world will either jokingly or seriously chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 and thus they will derive the benefit of cleansing the heart. I like that. Srila Prabhupada said even jokingly should chant along. The holy name of the Lord, Hare Nama, is so powerful that whether it is chanted or seriously, the effect of vibrating this transcendental sound will be equally distributed. It is not possible at the present moment to perform repeated yajnas as Maharaj Barhishat performed, but it is within our means to perform Sankirtan yajna, which does not cost anything. One can sit down anywhere and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mahamantra 2 times in one purport. If the circle globe is overflooded with the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, the people of the world will be very, very happy. Samudrim devadoktam, Samudrim devadevoktam, upayeme shatadrutim, yam viksha charu sarvangim, kisham sushtavalanktam, parikramantim udvahe, chankamegne shukim viva. Maharaj Barhishat, henceforward known as Prachinagrai, was ordered by the supreme demigod Lord Brahma to marry the daughter of the ocean named Shatadruti. Her bodily features were completely beautiful, and she was very young. She was decorated with the proper garments, and when she came into the marriage arena and began circumambulating it, the fire god Agni became so attracted to her that he desired her company exactly as he had formerly desired to. Prachinagrai, that's his name now. Okay. Purport. In this verse, the word Sushtav Alankritam is significant. According to the Vedic system, when a girl is married, she is very profusely and gorgeously decorated with costly saris, and during the marriage ceremony, the bride circumambulates the bridegroom 7 times. After this, the bridegroom and bride look at one another for life. When the bridegroom finds the bride very beautiful, the attraction between them immediately becomes very strongly fixed. As stated in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, men and women are naturally attracted to one another, and when they are united by marriage, that attraction becomes very strong. Being so strongly attracted, the bridegroom attempts to set up a nice homestead, and eventually a good field for producing grains. Then children come, then wealth. In this way, the male becomes more and more entangled in the material conceptions of life, and he begins to think, "This is mine," and "It is I who am acting." In this way, the illusion of material existence is perpetuated. Just checking if the connection's still going. It looks like it went out. Is it still going? Because right here on my screen, 0 out of 10. But sometimes this lies to me. Anyhow, I'm just going to continue reading, and if it stops working, send me a WhatsApp message. The words Shukim Eva are also significant, for the fire god Agni became attracted by the beauty of Shatad while she was circumambulating the bridegroom Pracetās, just as he had been previously attracted to the beauty of Shuki, the wife of Saptarshi. Isn't it in the heavenly planets there are those kinds of rules don't exist? Like you can just, everybody can enjoy with each other. They have a different set of ethics than we have in this world. When the fire god had been present long ago at the assembly of Saptarshi, he was attracted by the beauty of Shuki when she was circumambulating in the same way. Agni's wife, named Swaha, took the form of Shuki and enjoyed sex life with Agni. Not only the fire god Agni, but the heavenly god Indra, and sometimes even Lord Brahma and Lord Śiva, all very highly situated demigods, are subject to being attracted by sex at any time. The sex drive is so strong in the living entities that the whole material world is running on sex attraction only. And it is due to sex attraction that one remains in the material world and is obliged to accept different types of sex. The attraction of sex life is more clearly explained in the next verse. Vibudasura Gandharva Muni Siddha Naroraga Vijita Suryaya Dikshu Kvanayantaiva Nupurai. While Shatadruti was thus being married, the demons, the denizens of Gandharva Loka, the great sages, and the denizens of Siddha Loka, the earthly planets, and Nagaloka, although highly exalted, were all captivated by the tip of her ankle bells. Whoa, she must have been very beautiful. Because Gandharva Loka, all the demigods and stuff, oh my god. Even Siddha Loka, the highest planet. Purport. Generally, a woman becomes more beautiful when, after an early marriage, she gives birth to a child. To give birth to a child is the natural function of a woman, and therefore a woman becomes more and more beautiful as she gives birth to one child after another. In the case of Shatadruti, however, she was so beautiful that she attracted the whole universe at her marriage ceremony. Indeed, she attracted all the learned and exalted demigods simply by the tinkling of her ankle bells. This indicates that all the demigods wanted to see her beauty completely, but they were not able to see it because she was fully dressed and covered with ornaments. Since they could see only the feet of Shatadruti, they became attracted by her ankle bells, which tinkled as she walked. In other words, the demigods became captivated by her simply by hearing the tinkling of her ankle bells. They did not have to see her complete beauty. It is sometimes understood that a person becomes lusty just by hearing the tinkling of bangles on the hands of women, or the tinkling of ankle bells, or just by seeing a woman's sari. Thus it is concluded that that woman is the complete representation of Maya. Although Vishwamitra was engaged in practicing mystic yoga with closed eyes, his transcendental meditation was broken when he heard the tinkling of bangles on the hands of Menaka. In this way, Vishwamitra Muni became a victim of Menaka and fathered a child who was universally celebrated as Shakuntala. That's the name of my sister. The conclusion is that no one can save himself from the attraction of women, even though he be an exalted demigod or an inhabitant of the higher planets. Only a devotee of the Lord who is attracted by Krishna can escape the lures of women. Once one is attracted by Krishna, the illusory energy of the world cannot attract him. And of course, the same goes the way for men. The attraction of Okay. Prachina-barhisha putra shatradrutyam dasha bhavan tulya nama vrata sarve dharmasnata pracetasa. Is my internet still going? Yeah, it is. King Prachina-barhi begot 10 children in the womb of Shatadruti. All of them were equally endowed with religiosity, and all of them were known as the Pracetās. 10 Pracetās. Purport. The word dharmasnata is significant. The 10 children were all merged in the practice of religion. Snata, bathing. They are immersed. In addition, they possessed all good qualities. One is supposed to be perfect when one is perfectly religious, perfect in execution of one's vows to render devotional service, perfect in knowledge, perfect in good behavior, and so on. All the Pracetās were on the same level of perfection. Pitradishta praja sarge tapaser navam avisham dasha varsha sahasrani tapasar chunks tapaspatim. When all these Pracetās were ordered by their father to marry and beget children, they all entered the ocean and practiced austerities and penances for 10,000 years. Thus they worshipped the master of all austerity, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Sometimes great sages and ascetics enter the Himalaya mountains in order to find seclusion from the turmoil of the world. It appears, however, that all the Pracetās, the sons of Prachina-barhi, entered the depths of the ocean to perform austerity in a secluded place. Since they performed austerities for 10,000 years, this incident took place in the Satya Yuga, when people used to live for 100,000 years. It is also significant that by their austerity, they worshipped the master of austerity, Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one wants to perform austerities and penances in order to attain the supreme goal, one must attain the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one achieves the favor of the Supreme Lord, it is to be understood that he has finished all kinds of austerities and penances and has attained efficacy in their execution. On the other hand, if one does not attain the perfect stage of devotional service, all austerities and penances actually have no meaning, for without the Supreme Lord, one can attain the highest results derived from performing them. No one can attain the highest results derived from performing them. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 5.29, Lord Shri Krishna is the master of all penances and sacrifices. Bhoktaram yagatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram. Thus, the desired result of performing austerities may be derived from Lord Krishna. In Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 3.33.7, it is stated, Aho batashva pachato gariyan nyajibhagre vartate namatubhyam te pustapaste juhuvosnas nurarya pramanachur nama granantiyete. Even if a person is born in a family of chandals, the lowest birth one can get in human society, he is glorious if he chants the holy names of the Lord For it is to be understood that by such chanting, a devotee definitely proves that he underwent all kinds of austerities in his previous life. By the grace of Lord Chaitanya, one who chants the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, attains the highest perfectional stage, which had previously been attained by people who entered the ocean and executed austerities for 10,000 years. In this age of Kali, if a person does not take advantage of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, which is offered as a great concession to the fallen human beings of this age, it is to be understood that he is very much bewildered by the illusory energy of the Lord. Yaruktam patidrishtena girishena prasiddhata tadhayanto japantascha pujayantascha samyata. When all the sons of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam left home to execute austerities, they met Lord Śiva, who, out of great mercy, instructed them about the absolute truth. All the sons of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam meditated upon the instructions, chanting and worshipping them with great care and attention. Purport: it is clear that to perform austerities or penances, or for that matter, any form of devotional service, one has to be guided by a spiritual master. Here it is clearly stated that the 10 sons of Maharaj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam were favored by the appearance of Lord Śiva, who, out of great kindness, gave them instructions regarding the execution of austerities. Lord Śiva actually became the spiritual master of the 10 sons, and in turn, his disciples took his words so seriously that simply by meditating upon his instructions, Dhyanta, they became perfect. This is the secret of success. After being situated and receiving the orders of the spiritual master, the disciple should unhesitatingly think about the instructions or orders of the spiritual master and should not allow himself to be disturbed by anything else. This is also the verdict of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who, while explaining a verse of Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasayatmika Buddhir Ekeha Kurunandana, Bhagavad Gita 241, points out that the order of the spiritual master is the life substance of the disciple. The disciple should not consider whether he is going back home back to Godhead. His first business should be to execute the order of his spiritual master. Thus, the disciple should always meditate on the order of the spiritual master, and that is perfectional meditation. Not only should he meditate upon that order, but he should find out the means by which he can perfectly worship and execute it. Vidura uvacha Pracetās samgiritrena yatasit pati sangama yadutaha harapritas tana brahman vadartavat. Vidura asked Maitreya, "My dear Brahman, why did the Pracetās meet Lord Śiva on the way? Please tell me how the meeting happened, how Lord Śiva became very pleased with them, and how he instructed them. Certainly, such talks are important, and I wish that you please be merciful upon me and describe them." Purport: whenever there are some important talks between a devotee and the Lord, or between exalted devotees, one should be very much curious to hear them. At the meeting of Naimisharanya, where Sutta Goswami spoke Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam to all the great sages, Sutta Goswami was also asked about the talks between Maharaj Parikshit and Shukadeva Goswami, for the sages believed that the talks between Shukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit must have been as important as the talks between Lord Krishna and Arjuna. As everyone is still eager to learn the subject of Bhagavad Gita in order to become perfectly enlightened, Vidura was similarly eager to learn from the great sage Maitreya about the talks between Lord Śiva and the Pracetās. Is my connection still going? Yes, good. Sangama kala viprarshe shive neha sharirinam durlabho munayo dadyur asangaryam abhipsitam. The great sage Vidura continued, "O best of the Brahmins, it is very difficult for living entities encaged within this material body to have personal contact with Lord Śiva. Even great sages who have no material attachments do not contact him, despite their always being absorbed in meditation to attain his personal contact. Purport. Since Lord Shiva does not incarnate himself unless there is some special reason, it is very difficult for an ordinary person to contact him. Anyways, however, Lord Shiva does descend on a special occasion when he is ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I think the word here, it's probably avatar, which means to avatirna means to descend. So I don't think it means like changing his form or like getting a new body or something like that, but it just means descending. Yeah, anyways. That's just my idea, because I know whenever we do translations, lots of times we translate avatar as descend. What do you say? Anyways, yeah. In this regard, it is stated in the Padma Puran that Lord Shiva appeared as a Brahman in the age of Kali to preach the Mayavad philosophy, which is nothing but a type of Buddhist philosophy. Oh, well, that is totally an incarnation. Yeah. It is stated in Padma Puran, Mayavadam asachasram prachanam podamuchate mayaiva vihitang devi kalo brahmana murtina. Lord Shiva, speaking to Parvati Devi, foretold that he would spread the Mayavad philosophy in the guise of a sannyasi Brahman, just to eradicate Buddhist philosophy. Okay, I might have been wrong. It's not. Anyways, this sannyasi was Śrīpad Shankaracharya. In order to overcome the effects of the Buddhist philosophy and spread Vedanta philosophy, Śrīpad Shankaracharya had to make some compromise with the Buddhist philosophy, and as such, he preached the philosophy of monism, for it was required preaching Mayavad philosophy, Mayavad philosophy or Buddhist philosophy, and Lord Chaitanya rejected them. This Krishna consciousness movement is spreading the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya and rejecting the philosophy of both classes of Mayavadi. Strictly speaking, both Buddhist philosophy and Shankar's philosophy are but different types of Mayavad, dealing on the platform of material existence. Neither of these philosophies has spiritual significance. There is spiritual significance only after one accepts the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, which culminates in surrendering unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Generally, people worship Lord Shiva for some material benefit, and although they cannot see him personally, they derive great material profit by worshipping him. Atmaramapi astvasya lokakalpasya radhase shaktayukta vicharati Goraya Bhagavan Bhava. Lord Shiva, the most powerful demigod, second only to Lord Vishnu, is self-sufficient. Although he has nothing to aspire for in the material world, for the benefit of those in the material world, he is always busily engaged everywhere and is accompanied by his dangerous energies, like goddess Kali and goddess Durga. Purport. Lord Shiva is known as the greatest devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is known as the best of all types of Vaishnavas, Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu. Consequently, Lord Shiva has a Vaishnav Sampradaya, the disciplic succession known as the Rudra Sampradaya. Just as there is a Brahma Sampradaya coming directly from Lord Brahma, the Rudra Sampradaya comes directly from Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is one of the 12 great personalities, as stated in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 6.3.20. Swayambhur Narada Shambhu Kumara Kapilo Manu Prahlado Janako Bhishma Balirvaya Sagirvayam. There are 12 great authorities in preaching God consciousness. The name Shambhu means Lord Shiva. His disciplic succession is known as the Vishnu Swami Sampradaya, and the current Vishnu Swami Sampradaya is also known as the Vallabh Sampradaya. The current Brahma Sampradaya is known as the Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Even though Lord Shiva appeared to preach Mayavad philosophy, at the end of his pastime in the form of Shankaracharya, he preached the Vaishnava philosophy, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam Muramate. He stressed worshipping Lord Krishna, or Govinda, 3 times in this verse, and especially warned his followers that they could not possibly achieve deliverance, or mukti, simply by word jugglery and grammatical puzzles. If one is actually serious to attain mukti, he must worship Lord Krishna. That is Sripad Shankaracharya's last instruction. Herein it is mentioned that Lord Shiva is always accompanied by his material energy, Saktya Gohoraya. Material energy, Goddess Durga or Goddess Kali, is always under his control. Goddess Kali and Durga serve him by killing all the asuras or demons. Sometimes Kali becomes so infuriated that she indiscriminately kills all kinds of asuras. There is a popular picture of Goddess Kali in which she wears a garland composed of the heads of asuras and holds in her left hand a captured head and in her right hand a great khadga, or chopper, for killing asuras. Great wars are symbolic representations of Kali's devastation of the asuras and are actually conducted by Goddess Kali. Shrishti Stiti Pralaya Sadhana Shakti Reka. Asuras tried to pacify the Goddess Kali, or Durga, by worshipping her in material opulence. But when the asuras become too intolerable, Goddess Kali does not discriminate in killing them wholesale. Asuras do not know the secret of the energy of Lord Shiva, and they prefer to worship Goddess Kali or Durga or Lord Shiva for material benefit. Due to their demoniac character, they are reluctant to surrender to Lord Krishna, as indicated by Bhagavad Gita 7:15. Namam duskritino murda prapadyante naradhama mayaya pahrita jnana asuram bhavamashrita. Lord Shiva's duty is very dangerous because he has to employ the energy of Goddess Kali, or Durga. In another popular picture, the Goddess Kali is sometimes seen standing on the prostrate body of Lord Shiva, which indicates that sometimes Lord Shiva has to fall down flat in order to stop Goddess Kali from killing the asuras. Since Lord Shiva controls the great material energy, Goddess Durga, worshippers of Lord Shiva attain very opulent positions within this material world. Under Lord Shiva's direction, a worshipper of Lord Shiva gets all kinds of material facilities. In contrast, a Vaishnav, or worshipper of Lord Vishnu, gradually becomes poorer in material possessions because Lord Vishnu does not trick his devotees into becoming materially entangled by possessions. Lord Vishnu gives his devotees intelligence from within, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 10:10. Tesham satatayuktanam bhajatang pritipurvakam tadami buddhiyogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Thus, Lord Vishnu gives intelligence to his devotees so that the devotee can make progress on the path back home, back to Godhead. Since a devotee has nothing to do with any kind of material possession, he does not come under the control of Goddess Kali or the Goddess Durga. Lord Shiva is also in charge of the tamagun, or the mode of ignorance in this material world. His potency, the Goddess Durga, is described as keeping all living entities in the darkness of ignorance. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Nitra Rupam Samstita. Both Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are incarnations of Lord Vishnu, but Lord Brahma is in charge of the creation, whereas Lord Shiva is in charge of the destruction, which he carries out with the help of his material energy, Goddess Kali, or Goddess Durga. Thus, in this verse, Lord Shiva is described as being accompanied by dangerous potencies, Shakta Ghoraya, and that is the actual position of Lord Shiva. Maitreya Uvacha, what time is it? Oh, I only have a couple minutes. Okay, I'm just going to read this verse, I guess. Maitreya Uvacha Pracetās piturvakyam shirasadaya sadhava desham pratichim prayayus tapasya dhrita chetasa. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, because of their pious nature, All the sons of Pracina-Bharhi very seriously accepted the words of their father with heart and soul, and with these words on their heads, they went toward the west to execute their father's order. Purport. In this verse, sadhava, meaning pious or well-behaved, is very important, especially at the present moment. It is derived from the word sadhu. A perfect sadhu is one who is always engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pracina-Bharhi's sons were described as sadhava because of their complete obedience to their father. The father, king, and spiritual master are supposed to be the representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as such, they have to be respected as the Supreme Lord. It is the duty of the father, the spiritual master, and the king to regulate their subordinates in such a way that they ultimately become fully unalloyed devotees of the Supreme Lord. That is the duty of the superiors, and it is the duty of the subordinates to obey their orders perfectly and in a disciplined way. The word shirasa, on their heads, is also significant, for the Pracetās accepted the orders of their father and carried them on their heads, which means they accepted them in complete surrender. Sa samudram upavistirnam apashyan samuhatsara mahanmana iva swacham prasanna salilashayam. While traveling, the Pracetās happened to see a great reservoir of water which seemed almost as big as the ocean. The water of this lake was so calm and quiet that it seems like the mind of a great soul, and its inhabitants, the aquatics, appeared very peaceful and happy to be under the protection of such a watery reservoir. I think let's end here because it just turned 8 o'clock. What were we planning on reading to today? 23. Anyhow, we got to 20. So anyhow, I'm just going to end here. I'll make a note in our WhatsApp group. Yeah. We read up to 20. We'll read this purport tomorrow. Right. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Guru Gauranga Gandhavika Giridhari, Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki jai, Nitya Pravishtam Vishnupad, Ashtatar Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Shila Gurudev ki jai, Nitya Pravishtam Vishnupad, Ashtatar Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki jai, Nitya Pravishtam Vishnupad, Ashtatar Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitya Pravishtam Vishnupad, Ashtatar Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki jai, Nitya Pravishtam Vishnupad, Ashtatar Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai, Nitya Pravishta Mahabhagavat Shila Goksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai, Nitya Pravishta Shila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai, Nitya Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai, Shri Rupa Guriya Guru Varga ki jai, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Shara Goswami Prabhu ki jai, Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai, Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur ki jai, प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय, श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Sarva Abhishta Pradapta Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kund ki jai, Shri Mona Devi Ganga Devi ki jai, Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai, Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai, Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki jai, Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Nitai Gaura Premanande, Shri Madhavendra Puripad ki jai, Tadiya Shubha Avirbhav Titi ki jai, Shri Srinivas Acharya ki jai, Tadiya Shubha Avirbhav Titi ki jai. And today is also the appearance of Shri Radha Raman ki jai, Radha Raman Ju ki jai. Shri Parameshwari Thakur ki jai, Tadiya Shubha Tirabhav Titi ki jai, Shri Buddha Purnima ki jai. Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyashcha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So this evening, if I don't have my internet problems are not too bad, I mean, whatever, you get it, then we will read about Madhavendra Puri, and yeah, maybe we can read that chapter from, one of the beginning chapters. Is it? Anyways, is it the first chapter of Madhya Lila, or is it the second? It might be like the first or second or third chapters of Madhya Lila about Madhavendra Puri. That would be really great. It's one of my favorite chapters of CC. All right, Haribo. Jai Shri Radhe.